This is Danielle Harris, and you are listening to Rock Video Rental.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Rock Video Rental. We are continuing on with our Halloween series marathon, and we have hit Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. It's from 2009, obviously directed by Rob Zombie. Plot for this one is Laurie Strode struggles to come to terms with her brother Michael's deadly return to Haddonfield, Illinois. Meanwhile, Michael prepares for another reunion with his sister.
Dude,
I seriously weirdly worded plot.
Terribly worded, but when you started that, I seriously thought you said we have hit rock bottom.
I think we've probably done that too.
I think that might be fair to say. We'll see how this episode goes.
The last three have just been like one long sigh.
Yes.
An emphasis on long for the last two Rob Zombie ones.
Yeah.
My gosh, they have to be 2 hours long.
Oh man.
Oh,
where,
I guess.
Yeah, where do we want to start with this?
Cast?
Sure.
We got some returning people. We got Scout Taylor Compton as Laurie. Malcolm McDowell comes back as Dr. Loomis. Tyler Main comes back as Michael. Brad Dourif, aka the voice of Chucky, which I didn't mention last time, returns as Sheriff Brackett. We get Danielle Harris back as Annie Brackett. We get Chase Wright Vanek, this time as young Michael. Margot Kidder from Black Christmas and Superman as Barbara Collier. Caroline Williams from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 as Dr. Maple. And then, of course, it's a Rob Zombie movie, so Sherry Moon Zombie has to come back as Deborah Myers, even though she killed herself in the first one.
Yeah, and somehow she had more screen time.
Yep.
I'm like, what?
She's not horrible. She's not a great actress. And I feel like she's gotten better. But she's still not good.
She was playing a dead person.
Yeah. She has to be in every one of his movies. I seriously think that's like in his contracts.
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So, this time around we got Laurie, like her demeanor's completely changed. She's having a hard time dealing with what happened. Like they show her like wandering around in shock because she's just shot Michael. Sheriff Brackett finds her, takes her to the hospital, along with Annie and Dr. Loomis. Like they all survived being attacked. Now it's like 2 years later, and Laurie's living with the Bracketts because both of her parents are dead. Michael's been missing and he's presumed dead, but we all know Michael never dies.
Mm-hmm.
And aside because this movie, oh my gosh. So Laurie's like trying to deal with the trauma. Dr. Loomis like has turned into like a big douche, and he wrote this book trying to make money off it, and he's just completely full of himself. We get to see Michael, who's still alive, and he's wandering around like a drifter.
You get to literally see him.
Yeah, because he barely ever wears his mask, and he looks like Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
And he keeps having visions of his mother's ghost and a younger version of himself.
And a white horse.
She's always with a white horse.
Yep.
And then, like, she's instructing him to reunite with Laurie. And, like, was she doing this the whole time? Or just, like, randomly pop up after 2 years and she's like, oh, yeah, so go find your sister.
Yeah, like what happened to...
that terrible at finding her?
Well, yeah, what happened to last Halloween?
Yeah. He took one off. It was his... That was his vacation. He went to his boss's beach house and killed him, and then walked around with him like he was still alive. Weekend with Michael.
Nice.
But yeah, so now Michael's just like drifter. We get Lori trying to cope with everything. She's meeting with a psychologist who's played by Margot Kidder, and it's affecting like her life, her relationship with Annie, uh, just like everything. And once Dr. Loomis's book comes out, people start reading it, and then he like spills the beans about Lori being Michael's sister, and she never knew, and she finds out, and like that just throws more gas on the fire of like her downfall.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So that starts going on, and then Michael starts picking people off one by one, and like has this final showdown with Loomis and Brackett and Lori. And yeah, I gotta say that there's like much like part six, there's two kind of versions of this movie. You get the unrated one, which is what we watched, and then there's the theatrical cut. Um,
You know what the main difference was?
do I know?
Yeah.
Um, They're just like longer scenes, I think, and then like the end, I guess, is different. Where um in the theatrical one, like I don't think Michael talks at the end when he kills Loomis and he just yells die and stabs him, which I mean we'll come back to that, believe me. Um and like Lori dies. It's assumed that she dies in the unrated one, but like she doesn't in the theatrical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are weird changes to have, but okay.
Yeah. So this movie, um, I will say like the whole beginning of it is like a dream that Laurie has, which is just cheap as hell. It was the best part of the movie. Like, so in the original Halloween 2, if you guys remember, it takes place with Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie in the hospital after, the same night. What happened? Michael comes to the hospital after. Well, this gets like mirrored in this movie, and you're like, okay, this is where this is going, right?
Mhm.
But no, like, and it's crazy, like that beginning with Michael in
Yeah.
the hospital. Like, he stabs a nurse like 13 times or something and kills her, post another one's eyes out kind of thing. And, we get like a tense, like, getaway by Lori and just kind of building off from the original Halloween 2. And like, I enjoyed that part. I'm like, some of it's a little gratuitous. Like, did he really have to stab that woman so many times?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, they took what the original second one had and he kind of made it his own. And I appreciated that. And then at the end of it, when Michael's like trying to kill Lori, she wakes up and it was all like a nightmare she was having. And now we get like dropped into what the reality is. And this is where the movie starts going downhill.
Yeah. Totally stupid.
Yeah. And like all the visions of the white horse and like his mom is like this angelic figure.
Yeah.
Like it's given way too much depth to a character that doesn't need depth.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
my big comparison to this, so in this series, usually like when people rate them from best to worst, it's usually part six or this one they consider as the worst in a series, which I can kind of see why. Um, I mean, I will give this away right now that I think this one's the worst. And the reason why I think it's worse in part six, which is a bad movie, is that, um, or not, I'm sorry, not part six, Resurrection. I don't know why I'm saying six.
Okay.
Resurrection and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 are usually considered the worst.
Okay.
And
That makes more sense.
Resurrection is a terrible movie. Don't get me wrong. It's
Hmm.
bad. But in comparison to this, Resurrection knew what it was and it went with it.
Yeah.
You know, it was it was bad, but it was entertaining. And like some of the stuff is a little bit ahead of its time, like the online reality show kind of thing. I mean, you get Busta Rhymes doing kung fu and beating up Michael, which is dumb, but Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 has Michael yelling "Die" and stabbing Dr. Loomis at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he waits how many years without saying anything, and he says "die."
Yeah,
And also, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 attempts to be like psychologically deep and completely fails at it.
totally.
And it didn't need to do that, where
Mm-mm.
Resurrection was much more straightforward.
Yeah,
Knew what it was. It wasn't trying to be an amazing movie. It was trying to be entertaining. So like I give it a little more points than this movie gets.
yeah. No, there was so much bad about this. So much.
Oh yes, yeah.
Like I just I'm gonna go there too. I'm not gonna give my rating right now, but I'm with you too. I easily confidently can say I will put this as the worst one.
Mm-hmm.
I've not seen 2018, the 2018 yet. You know, we still have that one, and then Halloween Kills comes out later this year. But I'm comfortable saying they will easily be better than this one.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've seen 2018 a couple times, but obviously I have not seen Halloween Kills because it hasn't come out yet. But yeah, I think you can easily rest your head on this one being worst.
Well,
Another one of my main issues with it
Mhm.
is that okay, what characters are likable in this?
None.
Sheriff Brackett, I mean, he's kind of likable. Um,
A
he
little bit.
a little bit. Annie, she's likable. She gets killed. It's like from the first movie, who were the likable characters in that? Annie, Sheriff Brackett, Dr. Loomis. Well, Dr. Loomis is a complete douche in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so they're ruin that character. Let's kill off Annie. And then Sheriff Brackett doesn't really have too much to do in this one.
Yeah. And
And I don't
then,
know if like he's more likable to me because I like Brad Dourif and I always think he does a great job in everything he's in.
yeah,
Um,
Lori was likable in the first one to a certain extent, not as much as original Lori, but you could root for her a little bit. But then this one, you're just like, dude, just get rid of her already.
right? She's way too emo and like whiny in this one, which I mean, she went through a really traumatic experience in the first movie. So you kind of get it, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't want to see that in a movie.
Yeah, well, you have to balance it out. I mean, you need to at least have one character that you're rooting for to make it. And if you're going to have Lori be that character, you can't make her that, you know, spiteful, hateful, whatever you want to say.
Yeah,
You can show her going through that stuff and her character and all that, but you also have to show a part where people kind of connect with her and you're just like, yeah, I want to see her make it through this. She just got annoying.
exactly. And one of my issues with this too is similar to my issue with Jason Goes to Hell. This doesn't feel like a Halloween movie.
Thank you.
And
Hey, I was gonna bring Jason Goes to Hell up.
and like
Uh,
because Michael never wears a mask. He kind
mhm,
of just walks around. Um, he doesn't he grunts and like yells and stuff when he stabs people.
mhm.
Like the original Michael just killed people. He didn't make a sound. He never talked, and it was scarier that he didn't talk, and it was scarier that you didn't know anything about him, and he didn't have like any drive to do anything. He just was crazy.
Or any
He's
stupid
he's
white
more like
horses.
yeah. And there wasn't a 24/7 Nights in White Satin channel. That's all they play is Nights in White Satin by Moody Blues just over and over and over.
Well, then also, not only those things, because definitely had to bring those up, but he was excessive.
Yeah.
Like not excessive as the way that they were in the last Rob Zombie Halloween movie, but he was like, because he when he beat that kid up in the first one, it's just like, okay, some of that was a little bit excessive.
Yeah.
Some of the gore a little excessive, but with this one, especially that first kill that he had with the nurse, like, okay, that this again is another trait that's not Michael Myers. As you said, Michael just like kills to kill. they made Michael out from the beginning to be like, I'm insane lunatic that just gets off with rage killing.
Yeah.
And it just completely like changed the perspective of Michael Myers for the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, then later on he kind of calmed down with some of the stuff, but like that set the tone, and it was just like, this is already setting up to be bad.
Yeah. So I also have my notes here that this movie took 7 minutes to become deplorable. A mere 7 minutes. And, there's some gratuitous like violence in it, which, you know, you kind of come to expect in, you know, 2000s horror, especially 2000s slashers. So I can kind of look past that. But again, the stupid Rob Zombie dialogue where everybody's got to be like this piece of crap who just all they do is swear and just say like terrible things. We get the paramedics
Mm-hmm.
and the one guy talking about, you know, how hot this Linda's corpse was. And it's like, okay, that's bad enough. Like, I mean, I guess you can say, it's too bad she was a pretty girl or something like that. But he's like, oh, did you get a look at that one? Like, oh, like I never thought about wanting to bang a corpse, but here I am. And the one guy's just like disgusted by him. And then he tells like this disgusting joke. But it's like, yep. I looked at the time and I'm like, oh, 7 minutes. 7 minutes for like Rob Zombie to like drop some lines that are just disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, not
um
shocking at all.
yeah, and you said there were some gratuitous parts. How about when he kills the dog and eats it?
Yeah.
Like I could have done without that. And it goes back to what Joe Bob Briggs said about oh, it was one of the Friday 13th movies. I think it was the second one where, the dog Muffin, where they find that dog corpse.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, in horror movies, you can kill all the people you want and do whatever you want to them, but don't kill the dog. People get upset about that.
Yeah.
And that's I was like, oh, do we really have to like violently kill this dog and show Michael eating it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in the first movie, like Loomis and Brackett come across the that corpse of a dog, and Loomis says he got hungry.
Yeah, and then there was another one too where he killed the dog, and they wasn't it just the dead body in the closet or something, or
Well, remember in the first one where Lindsay's dog was outside, Michael like bear hugs it.
yeah.
Yeah, but they don't show anything. They show the dog like go limp and whimper.
Mm-hmm.
And like this one, you see him like tearing into this dog.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah, well there was so much of that. I mean, like man, okay, let's try to turn the tables here. Like, is there anything that we can take away from this and saying that it was in any way, shape, or form good?
uh, well, I guess I mentioned that Sheriff Brackett doesn't have as much screen time, but I feel like he has more dialogue in this.
Yeah.
And like that's a character I wanted to see more of from the first one. Um, I don't know how I feel about this young Michael. He doesn't look as doofy as the original one.
Yeah. There I think the only good thing to take away from it is the beginning dream part.
Yeah,
So compared to the first Rob Zombie Halloween movie, where I said, "Hey, you should take out the first like third of this movie and then
yeah,
just start it from there." This one's like the exact opposite. It's not even the first third; it's like the first like fifth of the movie, and then just cut out the end of it and just call it good,
yeah,
like a Halloween short.
yeah. I totally agree. And then the fact that it ended up being just a nightmare was like a slap in the face.
Yes, totally.
I mean, you can do a crazy opening like that. It was done in the Friday the 13th remake. It was like a Friday the 13th movie in 10 minutes where, they show up and you think these are going to be the main characters and they quickly get killed off by Jason. Like, and then the movie starts. That was great.
Yeah.
And like, the beginning of this was pretty good, but then like just it's like a slap in the face that they washed it all away
Oh yeah,
with,
absolutely.
oh, it was just a nightmare. Lori's like emo now and lives with Annie and your dad, and like everything in her life is just crap.
Yeah. Nothing was good. Nothing good to take away from Michael Myers. Lori, nothing good. Uh, the plot, nothing good. There was nothing special with her friends or anybody that you wanted to see live. And then
The
Dr.
dialogue's
Loomis,
garbage again.
yeah, trash. Dr. Loomis was a douche. I mean, that one I didn't take as much issue with because I was just like, okay, I can see a little bit of freedom of interpretation on being like, how would someone react to this? And, this
Yeah,
is a different version of Dr. Loomis. That one I was like, I'm not a fan of, but I don't take as much issue with it as I do all the other terrible things in this.
yeah. I guess I just prefer my Dr. Loomis crazy, trying to
Yeah.
shoot children 6 times.
Well, okay, and then here's another thing too, which was absolutely stupid. Is I'm trying to think of the sequence of events here, but Michael gets to town on Halloween and he crashes that vacant strip joint
Yep.
and kills a bunch of people. And then Lori and her friends decide to go to that Halloween party.
Hmm.
So they are there. I believe, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Michael goes to Sheriff Brackett's house and kills Annie
Yep.
and the officer out there. And then from there, he bounces over to the party and kills only Lori's friend and the guy that she's with.
Yep.
And then he goes back to Sheriff Brackett's house.
Yep.
Like, what? Like, okay, so because all the other stuff kind of makes sense. Like, essentially, they were trying to say he's moving in a straight line, but then all of a sudden he goes to his final destination and then he goes off somewhere else and then he knows to come back. And he knows exactly who to find and who to kill at the party because they know Lori, but then he doesn't mess with anybody else. And then he goes back to Sheriff Brackett's house before they get there, going there by car, or I don't. I was just like, what, did no one think about this? Like, did you get that huge disconnect there with that
Yeah.
sequence of events?
Yeah. It's like no one was there to reel in Rob Zombie.
Yeah, like it was just bad. And I mean, there was a little bit of it that kind of reminded me of, I don't know, Halloween 4, I think it was, maybe.
Hmm.
Um where there was the party that people were at and Michael went to and he killed a few people and some officers and
Halloween
whatnot.
5 was the one that had like the farm party.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Halloween 5 then. Um on just kind of interacting with that. But like Michael like showed up and showed him and there was more logic behind it in where he was going and the time frame and everything. But with this one, it was just like there's no way that he would that would even make sense. And they would have
Hmm.
to be like the two farms would have to be side by side and all this nonsense.
Yeah.
So and then the whole final showdown, he chases Lori, goes into the shed, and oh my word, just like the,
Gets
trying
blown away by the cops.
yeah, trying to make it. And also that reminds me of Jason Goes to Hell
Yeah.
because that's what happened in Jason Goes to Hell. He got blown away at the beginning. So just so much bad. I took huge issue too with being able to see his face.
Oh yeah. Same here.
That was so stupid, so unnecessary. And then also
Yeah.
also his methodical, like, oh, I'm not wearing my mask now. Oh, I'm gonna put my mask on. Oh, I'm gonna take it off. Like what?
Put my mask on when I kill. It's like in Over the Top where Stallone has to turn his hat backwards because it's like a switch.
It just got real.
Puts him in the zone. It's like, oh crap, Michael put his mask on. Look out.
When keeping it real goes wrong.
I keeps it real. Oh man, Chappelle Show.
Yeah.
Something
Oh,
else I'd rather be watching than Halloween too.
absolutely. Oh, dude, just I if someone's listening to this and has not seen this movie, it's really honestly difficult to kind of convey on just how bad it really is. Like if you've seen
Mhm.
all the other ones, or if you've just seen the first Rob Zombie one, I mean, it is bad.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
like you said, the whole like trying to give it more of a background to Michael and everything, and just and then we didn't even talk about yet in depth the fact that Lori essentially becomes Michael or
Yeah.
whatever. It's just like what, like, okay, you're kind of doing your own thing. Originally it was um Danielle's character in the other movie that wound up being it.
Jamie.
Jamie, yeah. Um kind of did that too, which then they completely wrote off anyways, but
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I kind of see it, but it's just like, oh, Michael, get her so that then we can be a family and you can come home. But then it winds up turning Lori into the next Michael Myers, which completely doesn't make any sense. So there, no logic, no reason, nothing makes sense.
Yeah. This movie series is interesting because I heard it on with Gorley and Rust when they were talking about this movie that this series has to have some kind of record for most times like coming to a stall and then trying to correct it and then stalling and recorrecting because you think about one and two come out and then they do Halloween 3 and that was a flop. So they're like, oh crap, well, we got to restart. So then they have Halloween 4, which was popular, Halloween 5, which was worse, and then Halloween 6, which was bad. So they're like, oh crap, we got to correct this. So then they go Halloween H2O, which was popular, Halloween Resurrection, which was bad. So then they're like, oh, we got to correct this. So then they do Rob Zombie's Halloween, which was popular, and then Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which was bad. So then they corrected it again with Halloween 2018. Like I can't think of another series that does that. Like
Yeah,
Friday the 13th just keeps going. Like, oh,
yeah.
it's a bad one, and then they have another one where it's just like, oh, it's a little bit better.
We'll just keep rolling with it.
Yeah, and it comes back to I always said that Halloween had the highest highs and lowest lows, where Friday the 13th is consistent all the way through.
Yeah.
Like there's some better ones, but there's not many that are like, the only one we keep comparing them. The only one I can really compare to this from Friday the 13th is Jason Goes to Hell
Yeah.
because
No,
it's so
absolutely.
bad.
Yeah.
Jason X was terrible, but um at
Well,
least it didn't take itself too seriously. Where this one is trying to be like
mhm.
deep and thought provoking
No.
and it's just confusing and stupid.
Well, this one is like so Friday the 13th is kind of like a smooth kind of like sound wave, up and down a little bit and everything.
Hmm.
It's not super drastic. This one's like a EKG, you
Peaks and
know.
valleys.
Yeah, peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys.
Yep, I would totally agree with that. We talked about gratuitous like violence and stuff in it. Well, when we do this, I always like to do the kill count. There's 19 kills in this movie,
Yep.
and that rivals some Friday the 13th movies. The list I got here, we got Coroner Hooks. He is, one of the guys in the ambulance that's has like the disgusting dialogue. He dies in a car accident. Gary, who is the guy that made the joke and talked about um, wanting to sleep with a dead person, he gets decapitated with glass. That was pretty brutal.
Mm.
Nurse Daniels gets stabbed like a trillion times. Um, and that one, it's like stab, 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 stab. And then he stands there for a second. One more for good measure.
Basically.
Gosh, I didn't think it was ever going to stop the first time I saw this. So there's another nurse. Her eyes get gouged out. There's Buddy, who is like the parking lot attendant. He gets an axe in the back. He's it made me laugh because like, oh, it's the grandpa from Grounded for Life, which was a sitcom in like the 2000s that I used to
Well,
watch all the time.
he was also Office Space.
Yeah, the jump to
Jump to
conclusions.
conclusions.
uh, oh gosh. So there's Floyd who gets impaled on antlers, and this is after Lori wakes up. So everything from the coroner to Buddy, the parking lot attendant, is part of the dream, right?
Well, like I'm seeing some people say that the coroner and the other guy in the
Yeah, the
emergency
paramedic guy.
vehicle were quote unquote not a part of the dream.
Okay, so the two nurses and Buddy were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Supposedly. I mean, maybe all
okay,
5 of them were, but anyways.
yeah. So Floyd, who's like a redneck that beats up Jason, not Jason, Michael, he gets impaled on antlers. It's just been done so many times. At this point, I guess it was done in the Friday the 13th remake, which came out in the same year. It was also done in Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is the first one I can think of that was done in. Um, just, I don't know, wasn't very original to me. Sherman Benny, he gets stabbed with a knife. Jasleen Benny gets stabbed with a knife. And that was another one too. Like, these are that redneck group, and like the daughter was the one that showed mercy for Michael because they were beating him down with a baseball bat, and she's like telling her dad to stop.
Mhm.
And then like she apologized to Michael and then like went back to the truck, and Michael kills her like brutally too.
Yeah, but at the same time, Michael just kills.
Yeah.
Honestly, the only time I can think that he didn't kill was shoot, what was it? Was it this Halloween 2 where he snuck into that house and grabbed the butcher's knife when the people were watching the TV and he didn't kill him?
Yeah. He didn't kill the old lady or the old man.
I think that's
And
the
he didn't
only.
kill Tommy either when Tommy was little in the first one. Remember, because Tommy was getting teased by those kids and he tried to run away and he ran into Michael.
Oh yeah.
And Michael just kind of stopped him, and then Tommy walked away and Michael just watched him walk away.
But then he tried to kill him later. I should have killed him when I had the chance.
I should have stabbed him 6 times. Oh gosh. So we got Lou Martini gets his face bashed into the wall. The stripper Misty Dawn gets her face bashed into a wall like millions of times. And then at the party, we get Harley, who is one of Lori's friends. She gets strangled. The guy that she was hooking up with, Wolfie, who I don't know if you recognize his voice. He is Andy from JTP
Oh my god.
and Goldberg's,
That's funny.
the little guy that they always pick on for being short.
Yeah.
I recognize his voice, and he's got like that big wolf mask on, so you can't really see his face. And I like, gosh, where did I recognize that voice? And when I looked it up, I laughed. So we, ironically enough, Deputy Andy gets his neck snapped. Annie gets stabbed with a knife, and like the entire bathroom's covered in blood. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It reminded me of a scene from the movie Pieces, which I know you haven't seen, and I don't know if people are listening to this might know what I'm talking about. But I can send you the picture of that scene because it's ridiculous. Um, so Bex gets thrown through a windshield. Dr. Loomis gets stabbed in the stomach, and Michael screams "die" at him. And then Michael gets shot by like a whole bunch of guns. Wah wah.
Wow, wow.
It's like in Godzilla '98, where Godzilla gets killed by missiles. It's like, Michael, how many times? Dr. Loomis shot him 6 times and he didn't die. But
Yeah.
let's just unload on him, and that's how he's going to die. And just like at the end of part 4, that's how they killed him too. And he fell into a mine shaft.
And then he crawled away.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all the 19 kills. Obviously, 18 were by Michael because he can't kill himself. Well, he could, like his mom, but then he'll show up in the next sequel with a white horse. So the end, it's kind of
Stupid.
thought-provoking a little bit, stupid, but like, did Lori die or is she in a psych ward? Because everything is white where she's at. Like, is she in purgatory?
Mm-hmm.
And she's seeing visions of Michael, young Michael, and Mrs. Myers, and like she just kind of looks at him and smiles, and it's like the end of the movie.
Yeah. Well, then that brings up another thing too that didn't make sense to me, is just like, why do we see adult Michael and young Michael at the same time?
Yeah.
Like, I could understand if adult Michael turned into young Michael and in his visions or whatever, and he thinks of himself as, his mother's son still as a kid.
Yeah.
But for him to be like outside of himself and seeing his younger self was just like, what? I don't know, man. A little
Yeah.
thought provoking, but I just call it garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, the movie tried way too hard to be deep and psychological, and it just kind of fails.
Mm-hmm.
Failure. A failure. Acting, I guess it's okay. I guess. I think really what these movies hurt from is the dialogue and the writing.
Well, everybody was just angry all the time. So, I mean, is that hard to act?
Everybody was angry. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a very angry movie. Yeah, I guess I'll get into the trivia here. I got a fair amount. So John Carpenter was offered a cameo by Rob Zombie, and he turned it down.
Good job.
Yeah, good move there, Carpenter. So until 2018, Danielle Harris was tied with Jamie Lee Curtis for the second most appearances in the Halloween series after Donald Pleasance. So Rob Zombie originally stated that he would never do a sequel to Halloween until the studio decided to make it. Then he signed on to write and direct because he didn't want someone else to ruin his vision. Well, you did it yourself there, bud.
I want to be the one who ruins this.
If anybody's going to ruin my movie, it's going to be me. Oh, gosh. So Daeg Farsh filmed some scenes reprising his role as young Michael, but he was replaced and the scenes were reshot because it was apparent that he was like noticeably grown up since the last installment, and it didn't look like the same age. So in the 2 years time. So at around 1 hour and 5 minutes, when Lori and her friends arrive at a concert, at that party, the band is playing a song called Terror Train. Terror Train is a 1980s slasher movie starring Jamie Lee Curtis, which is kind of ironic, and I don't know if that was planned. Knowing that Rob Zombie is a big horror movie fan, I would think that was probably planned.
Okay.
So I mentioned to you, like, they probably get a tone down how many times they said the F word in this. Well, the F word and all of its forms are used 112 times in this movie.
That's it?
You think that was enough? That's it, yeah.
It doesn't sound like that's the right number.
Like, if they wanted to reach more, they probably just put Joe Pesci in it. So Weird Al is in this movie
Oh yeah.
in a quick scene. His only condition to appearing in the movie is that he got to pick his own wardrobe.
Nice.
Which, okay, Weird Al. So due to the miserable experience working with the Weinsteins on the Halloween movies, Rob Zombie has actually disowned them, especially this one in particular, which according to him had worse studio interference than the first one did.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, the production of the movie was like very troubled, and Zombie like frequently clashed with the Weinsteins, um, who he said were difficult to work with. One egregious interference was that when 2 weeks of shooting was slashed from the schedule on the first day of filming, forcing Rob Zombie just to like rip pages of the script out because he
Oh,
wouldn't have time to do it anyway.
so this movie was meant to be longer.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm sure Rob
Three
Zombie was
hours.
I'm sure Rob Zombie was super easy to work with.
Oh yeah, I bet. So, in addition to the studio interference that compromised the production, um, Rob Zombie also strongly suspected that crew members were actually stealing money from the film's production budget.
Yeah. Okay.
It's possible, I guess. So, while writing Dr. Loomis for the sequel, Rob Zombie based his egotistical and self absorbed personality on Dr. Phil. What were you
Nice.
thinking? I would have rather seen Dr. Phil in this than the arrogant version of Dr. Loomis, I guess, because it would have been funny at least.
That would have been funny.
Michael, what were you thinking? Oh. So Rob Zombie had nearly every main character killed off in the ending, including Michael. Um, and it's hinted at Laurie in the director's cut. It was to finally ensure that another film could not be made. Despite this, Dimension Films insisted on a third film, and Zombie walked away from such plans, not wanting to be involved with it. The film ultimately underperformed financially and was panned by fans and critics, casting doubt on a sequel. So, after years of no development, uh, the Weinstein Company and Dimension finally just surrendered the rights to the franchise to Universal Pictures and Blumhouse, which resulted in the next movie we'll be talking about, Halloween 2018. So I'll say thank God. Last thing I got here, it had a $15 million budget and made 39.4 in the box office.
How?
Dude, a lot of people liked that first Rob Zombie one. I didn't think it was that bad when I first saw it, and then like, now I watched again and I don't care for it. And Rob Zombie's got a big fan base.
Yeah, true. Hey, well, one thing that I'll say about this is Halloween didn't skip any decades with their movies.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
uh like Friday the 13th missed out on the 2010s.
And they had a few times where they like didn't have a movie for 5 or 6 years, but that's
Yeah.
about it.
There were some big gaps too with Halloween, but they hit every decade from the since the 70s, so
Yeah. So yeah, let's get into grades. Uh pulled from IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. What do you think those are?
oh man, IMDb, give me 3.4.
4.8.
Oh jeez. What?
Yeah.
Stupid
It's pretty
IMDb.
funny. Like we think the movie's so bad that they were arguing that a 4.8 is too high. Oh gosh.
Okay, Rotten Tomatoes, don't let me down, critics. Let's go with 32%.
21.
Okay. It's a little bit more in there. Audience, let's go 42%.
45. You're pretty close.
Ooh, hey, there we go.
Um, I guess I'll go first here. So I already kind of spilled the beans and said that I think this is the worst movie in the entire franchise. Um, and I think this is either the second or third time I've watched this movie, and I can say it doesn't get better. If anything, it gets worse. Like this being either my second or third time watching it. I think it might be my third. Because I'm usually like, if I see a movie and I didn't care for it, I'll go back and try to watch it again, especially if it's like part of a series that I really enjoy. So, and think maybe it'll grow on me. I've done that with Jason X. Doesn't get better either. Um, yeah, this one, while I was watching it, I kept like pausing it and looking at the timeline. I'm like, gosh, how much time is left in this? And I'm like, oh, it's only been like 5 minutes. And I kept looking at my phone. I'm like, I kept getting distracted because this movie is kind of dull and it's just straight up bad. Um, I mentioned numerous times now that I didn't like that they tried to make it deep and give a lot of backstory, um, because it fails miserably in both of them. The whole white horse and knights in white satin thing just was stupid. It was unnecessary, and I don't need Michael to have that. I don't need Michael to have a motive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was scary about him, is that he was just a random dude. Yeah, especially, I didn't even really care too much for Lori being called Michael's sister because it gives him more of a motive. Where the first one, what's so scary about it is that he's just a crazy dude that snapped when he was a kid, murdered his sister, has been locked away. He breaks out of a psych ward, goes back to his hometown, and just randomly starts killing who shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's and for whatever reason, he's drawn to Lori and her friends, and he stalks them around because they're like some of the first people that he meets as after he gets out. And
Yeah.
it's just random. He has no motive. We don't know anything about him, and that just it's creepier to me than a guy that's driven to kill people in his family because his mom tells him so.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, it's
oh,
almost
I'm
getting
dead
on the
because I
side
killed
of,
myself, and um, we should all be together. Like, okay. And for some reason, here's a younger version of you with me, but you're still alive.
yeah.
Like, what? Are you saying like young Michael died when he snapped and killed his sister and his stepdad? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, long story short, I give this a half of a point out of five. So
Like,
it's right down there with Jason X and Jason Goes to Hell for me.
yeah, I saw that coming. Um, well, one thing too that I feel like, not to get into this too much because I'll try to remember this to save this for when we do the whole series review. But when he discovers that or when we all discover that Lori is his sister, it also takes away from the point of like, okay, then who gives a crap that he's killing on Halloween?
Yeah.
Like in the original one, it was like, okay, he killed his sister on Halloween, something with this guy. We don't need to know why, but there's something around Halloween that this guy just kills.
Mm-hmm.
But then,
Or it could just be a coincidence that he was able to break free on Halloween.
yeah,
Maybe some lack of security or something, and he saw his way out, and that's when he made his break.
yeah. But either way, it's just kind of like there was just kind of like the ambiguity about it. But then it's just like, oh, so then all the series after that is just like, okay, Halloween's not important. It's just like, oh, we're gonna make it happen around Halloween now. But the main point was like he gets stir crazy to kill because of his sisters, whatever.
Yeah.
So really stupid. Anyways, um, yeah, no, this whole mess was hot garbage. Um, After the dream, there were even some things during the dream that were problematic, but just totally after the dream, it's just like this movie did not need to exist. There was nothing positive that came out of it after that dream sequence. It was all just kind of like it's just a movie. Now,
Yep.
I had some things that I could say positive about the first Rob Zombie Halloween, where it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, if you remove the name Michael Myers, if you remove the iconic mask, and you just made it a horror movie, it would be okay. kind of like how we said, if you take Halloween 3 out of the Halloween series and just made it its own movie, it's standalone by itself, a decent movie.
Yeah.
But this one, if you took it out by itself, or if you just had it with the previous Rob Zombie Halloween, nothing works.
No, not at
Like,
all.
I mean, the only thing that directly connects it are, you know, Lori, Annie, the sheriff, and Dr. Loomis, and then Dead Mom. You know, but then like anything else that was like like sewing pieces together just completely came unraveled. Like all of a sudden there's this thing about the white horse. All of a sudden he sees his mom's ghost and his younger self, and all of a sudden he's a raging lunatic who screams when he kills people and is super excessive, and Lori's off the deep end, and you know, you don't like anybody, and even Lori, you're just kind of like, go ahead and let her die and put her over misery. Like nothing
Right.
worked. So I'm right with you with putting this at 0.5.
Yeah, I say that's definitely fair.
Yeah, this
Um,
is
I can
before
say honestly too that I probably will never watch this movie again.
Oh yeah, for sure for me. But even before you brought it up, I had it in my notes to be like, this is the equivalent of Jason Goes to Hell for the Halloween series.
Yep, totally agree.
So much just does not make sense.
Yeah, and I mean, you can hate on Resurrection as much as you want. That movie sucks, but I would say it's more entertaining than this, and I'm more apt to watch Resurrection than this one.
Oh yeah.
This was one that dude, out of the whole Friday 13th series, out of the whole Halloween series, this was like the first one I really didn't want to rewatch. You know, I was willing to watch Jason X again to see if my mind changed on it. Um, the first Rob Zombie Halloween, didn't really want to watch that one, and this one, like, you know, I was like, should I watch it again to um see if there's anything that I enjoyed about it? And then like I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, what happened in this one? And I started reading through some of the plot and stuff on um IMDb and on Wikipedia, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what happens. And I'm like, oh, I really don't want to watch this. And yeah, I could say I don't think my mind's ever going to change, so I don't really have to ever watch this again. So I guess that's a positive I took from it. I can tell you that next time it's going to be a little bit better.
Hey, I'm down for that.
I mean, like I said, he can't get much worse. So, and it's nice to have Jamie Lee Curtis back and Rob Zombie not involved. But next time we will be talking about Halloween 2018. It's the third movie in the series to just be called Halloween, which isn't confusing at all. So until then, as always, be kind and rewind.